Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you are.
Okay. I'd like to convene actually it's the official February 24, 2023 meeting of the Town Complete Streets Committee. For a range of factors, we decided to move it out one more week to March the 3rd. So this is our February meeting, but we're holding it on March 3rd, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. And just do a quick roll call, if I may. Tess Healy is here. Hello, Tess. How are you?
I'm good. Hello.
Carla Dougal is here. Hello, Carla. How are you today? Bill Chapman is here. Jim Levy is here. How are you, Jim? Elise sent us a note saying she was going to miss today. And we do want to acknowledge that she recently got a crossword in the Sunday New York Times Magazine. So congratulations to Elise Corbin. Andrew Millspaugh. Andrew is here with us today. Hello, Andrew. Catherine Kuzman is here. She was maybe not going to make it, but she's got a nagging chairman. And so here she is with us. And thank you, Catherine, for joining us. Ben O'Shea. I hope it's going to be on the way in a little bit. He may have to still bust out of school. And is Jack Connolly out? John Connolly out with us today, Laura? Or
Not today. He had to do some schoolwork today, but hopefully he'll be able to come to the next one.
Okay. We've had roll call. Privilege of the floor. Any citizens that have asked to address the committee that we're aware of today?
Not that I've seen.
Okay. And minutes, we'll get minutes maybe before our March 31 meeting from our Jan 27 get together. Maybe
Yeah,
27 and today.
We'll have to have 2 sets of minutes at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, why don't we move on to new business? And the first item is the Mohawk Golf Club. And just before we jump on that, I do want to thank Andrew, one of our members, for taking a look at the town zoning code and sending some input to Laura on the housing configuration, both what would happen without a new project. And so thank you, Andrew, for doing that for us. And well, anyway, I'll shut up and let's move on to the Mohawk Golf Club. You're on mute, Laura.
Sorry. This project, still changing a lot. The planning board had initially called for a public hearing on the project, on the proposal that Andrew had commented on for March 13th, but the applicant yesterday actually withdrew that proposal and indicated to us that this is going to shape the next proposal that they submit to the town of Niskayuna. In this proposal, it does not show the walking connection that we did get them to draw up between East Country Club Drive and Ruffner. But I don't really expect that to be an issue because I think this was just a concept at the planning board level the last time. But I did want to bring it to you guys if you had any Complete Streets thoughts. They did. I know the last Complete Streets meeting I put in the planning board packet, Complete Streets had thought about, well, Complete Streets is, balanced of all types of, things that use the street. So if there's something that's really good for cars too, you do make those recommendations. And I know that you had asked to make both walking and vehicular connections between the neighborhoods. There were some alternatives that the applicant submitted that did show those, but the planning board, with the different amounts of traffic that would come from making those connections, did seem to put those aside, like connecting East Country Club Drive up to Rao or something like that. They did do some traffic deltas on that, and it did put a lot more cars through the neighborhood. So they I think still in a big state of flux, still very early, didn't want to do vehicular connections.
So could you just elaborate on that a little bit? In other words, the planning board did not want a plan that would do more by way of connectivity in the town, and in terms of the East Country Club neighborhood being able to get out to Ruffner Road or Rao Road by using the roads in this project?
To drive.
To
I
drive,
think that yes. Yeah. They didn't it's a lot of so I don't have it in this packet, but the developer did submit it, and essentially a 22 single family home subdivision would generate 10 to 15 cars maximum, like in a peak AM and PM. But when you connect East Country Club Drive through this neighborhood and then through to Railroad or Ruffner Road, it's monumentally higher. And I think they were happy to look at pedestrian connections at any point, but they didn't at that time support the vehicular connections between East Country Club Drive and like Rao and Ruffner. It was Rao specifically that they looked at, like making it a through road from East Country Club Drive up to Rao. But they did listen, but didn't want to do that.
Okay.
One thing I noticed on this one, which I didn't know if you guys wanted to comment on, was, I mean, I'm guessing like theoretically, right? Because I can bring up that other drawing that we looked at the last meeting, which I felt like was a huge win for Complete Streets. But they have the connection. They showed an engineered possible connection between multi-use path connection between East Country Club Drive and Ruffner Road. I don't think that this proposal hurts that connection in any way. The connection would just, go to here, and then you could just pull the path down the side of the right of way there. But now you have this long cul-de-sac kind of with no way out. And this is proposed to be grass over to the, these guys. But I mean, I don't know, like, I know you got to balance everything, but I was thinking like, well, maybe you could put a walking path here, or before this was, oops, I messed that up. Sorry, guys. Like before if you guys remember, the emergency access was showed over to Rao. I mean, you might be able to also just put a walking connection over to Rao so that there's a lot more walking paths.
Yeah, and it doesn't look
So
like they show.
it would be a walk path from Country Club to the roadway here, and then you'd go down this road and get out to Rao Road at the other end.
You could. I think that the only one that the planning board and the developer have been talking about so far is the East Country Club Drive connection to Ruffner Road, a walking connection. This one's proposed to be emergency access only, paved over grass, sort of like hard surface grass. But I mean, on a different drawing, I don't know if you guys remember it, also showed that you can kind of tie into a golf cart path over there that goes over to Rao Road. Of course, there's, I suppose, logistic issues with it. It's on private property, and it goes, it goes along a golf course where people are playing golf. So I don't know, there could be logistical issues with it.
Where would it exit out at the end?
Yeah, wait, here, I'll show you. I should have just had it in here. I didn't think about it though until we're just.
And Laura, this doesn't show sidewalks in the proposal either, right? So there's nothing. I mean, there's technically some Complete Streets work to be done with the whole thing.
Right, because it's still very preliminary. Just a constantly evolving project.
Yeah, and I assume the applicant wouldn't want to connect the road now to Rao to eliminate the dead end, because that's going to mess with the hole there. But you could theoretically do that now, and you're not making a cut through from Country Club, because it's not a cut through road anymore.
It would be Ruffner. Yeah. And this may be a little bit harder to conceptualize because there's no aerial, but this is kind of the end of the cul-de-sac, and it goes along there's a golf course over to this stub on Row Road.
But would the golf course give you permission to go on their property if it's a public hike and bike path?
I mean, you have to get an easement, and it might be hard because here's the 14th tee box, you know, so people would be theoretically hitting balls over and across this path.
Mm.
So I don't know. It's just a thought, you know, anywhere that you can put in walking connections would be really good. And I think it would be cool if you could somehow put walking connections between kind of all three of the neighborhoods, you know.
It definitely would be cool. And if I lived over there, it would add a nice loop versus feeling like here's this little dead end neighborhood that's just encroaching on my view of what was previously green space. I mean, you know, if at any time the golf course would be amenable to compromise, it would be now. I was at one of the planning board meetings, and the residents, and so was Laura. I bet she's been at a whole bunch, but the residents in the neighborhood are really up in arms about that development happening. So I'm sure that's why it's so in flux, but you know, just not wanting it in their backyard sort of thing.
Laura, this sorry, office dog barking at the wrong time. This development, the parcel is owned by the golf course, right? Parcel to be developed.
Yeah, it's currently owned by the golf course.
Right. So Tess made a good point. If there's ever a time to talk about connectivity, it's now. They're coming in asking for the ability to develop. If we want to have something done, now's the time to do it. I mean, it always is when a development comes in, but certainly if they own the property, now's the time to talk with them about, you know, something like that, even if they had to realign the whole, which I think we had talked about when they came in with some of the original proposals as well, when they showed those potential connections, you know, even cart paths and things. They'd have to redevelop, you know, and redesign that whole potentially.
The 11th hole, I think, does have to be redesigned.
No, the 13th, whatever the one up the top there is.
The 14th.
But I know from a complete streets connectivity standpoint, I mean, if you get a kid on a bike, and you can get from there up the road, it makes it awful lot quicker, say for instance, to get to the high school. If eventually we get a connection, you know, from Rosendale, you know, over to Knott Street and then over to the high school, things we've been talking about on and off for years. That's a pretty quick ride to be able to go straight through there and to be able to connect an East Country Club drive through there, you know, through the edge of the golf course and around, really does open up a whole kind of different world of people being able to get through that part of town, particularly on bike, but even on foot. So I'd advocate for still continuing to push for pedestrian connections between East Country Club, this and what is it, Ruffner up to the north, I guess.
And Row.
And around.
Row, I'm sorry. Yep. To the extent we can. Now is definitely the time if you know that's the direction everyone wants to go.
So I
Anyone else with a comment on this one?
I was just going to say thank you to Laura for remembering that after she showed us again that it was two connections, not just the one that's feasible.
Yeah, I don't know how they would feel. I mean, because this proposal doesn't include taking down a home. And I think in order to try and keep the neighborhood like with the highest integrity, that's why they were thinking about making the emergency access like grass. But so I don't know how those two homes would feel about if it was like made into a multi-use path, at least. I mean, even if it was just another 5-footer like they were talking about over to East Country Club Drive. But it does just seem like the more walking connections you make into the neighborhood, the better.
And I would think emergency vehicles would like an asphalt path as opposed to grass. I mean, grass can get wet and muddy and soggy, and even if you got a 5-foot, it's safer for cars to get out and safer for emergency vehicles to get in and out on an asphalt path. But
Yeah, the 5-foot, I mean, you'd still have to make the strong grass on either side because the 5-foot path, they need like a 10 or 12-foot path. But yeah, I mean, I just think, yeah, like walking your dog or whatever you want to do would be sort of, because especially like, you know, if you live to the north, you could cut down through there and get down to East Country Club. Or if you live to the south and they were able to make that walking connection to Row Road, you know, I don't know. I'm just saying.
I still don't understand how you'd have increased traffic on Row Road. because I think as we talked about in the last meeting, it would just divert the traffic, maybe divert some of the traffic from Ruffner Road. And that traffic would still make its way over to Rao Road, like say going to the high school or.
So right now, this is East Country Club Drive, and the only way that the majority of these homes can get out of their neighborhood, they have to drive south. So they can drive south to Union Street or south to Rosendale Road. It's likely that if they're going north and they're going to like ShopRite Plaza or something like that, they may go out to Rosendale Road, take a right, and come up Ruffner. But they may also use Rose Hill or one of the ones that goes a little further up too. But if you were to take all of these homes and connect them to Rao Road, like if they were going north, there'd be almost no reason that these guys would ever go down to Union Street and then up Balltown Road. They would go up Rao over to Hilltop and then keep going from that way. That's why. So like this is just 22 homes. This is like 100 or more. And I mean, I think it would be really nice for the people who live there, but when you're talking about trying to figure out a way to make this work for all the neighborhoods, like, 15 cars versus 100 is quite a difference.
It goes to show why you have to do things up front in the first time and not try and go back and do it later. This is a perfect example that if it always been that way, it would always be that way. But going in and changing it later changes what people have been used to for eons and generations, and change is difficult and sometimes, and a lot of times, not desired. So it's not only just for complete streets, but this I think is a perfect example of that.
That's why we bring planning projects to you to look for easements and connections in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that it's good that Laura brings projects to Complete Streets. At least we get a chance to put our input in. Sometimes the town board and the planning board will accept it and do a push to get some Complete Streets things in. But sometimes neighbors object. Then if we were all residents on Rao Road and we had to look at another 100 cars a day or something, we might look at it like they do as well. So and I do feel, well, like Knott Street East, the connection to River Road was in the town plan for 20 years. The neighbors objected, but we still did get a hike and pedestrian connection there. So half a loaf is better than none. And I still think we should keep trying to do the bike and pedestrian connection. So you may not be able to drive your car north, but if you can walk or get on your bike or walk your dog and still get over to Rao Road by using this, I think that would be a win. So
I'll take their bikes and trailers to the ShopRite.
yes.
Again,
Okay.
getting people out of cars is something we're trying to do as well. Reducing
Yes.
vehicle trips. And so if we can do that, particularly for recreation trips or something, absolutely. That's another objective.
Okay.
Okay, so my recommendation from you guys, at least on this extremely, extremely preliminary plan change, would be to push for pedestrian connections to Rao and Ruffner as they're evolving.
Yes, and I think Jim's got a
Sidewalk.
good point. We have a little leverage with the golf course now, being able to get a pedestrian connection over to Rao, that we should use that.
Yeah, I think it's now going back and trying to do it later is probably not going to happen. So if there's ever a chance, it's during the development.
Catherine, do you have to go early? Is that right? Or
I do. I'm here with my family in Florida, and this is our last day here. So
okay.
as much
How about
as
if I
I'd love
give you?
to spend the rest of the day with this group, I'm going to
Yeah.
have to leave early today.
Well, let me ask you. Can you just give us 2 minutes on Troy Road before you go? I mean, I know you've given us some suggestions. We're going to get to it later in the agenda, but is there anything you want to say on Troy Road before you go?
Well, I don't know how much there was an article in the paper. I think everybody saw it. So there was a district attorney that reached out to the Department of Transportation on this issue because there's been several fatalities. I'm assuming there's many lawsuits that are going on right now, and everybody's being sued left and right. So DOT would obviously get involved in that time. So we're coming at a different angle on this. We're looking for ways to slow the traffic down so we can have a safer environment for all users on Route 7. That's basically what we're interested. We're not interested in any of these lawsuits. So it's really about looking forward and finding ways to really slow the traffic down. And we're not going to do it solely through law enforcement. So I do think this is a good time to put the pressure on the department. If they know that the community is really interested in some solutions, and we can come up with some, obvious solutions, I think. Let me see here. And they've been done before on that route. So I don't know how much of a push this is going to be, but I think this is a good time to make our point to the department when it's still, on their radar. We don't want this to lapse too long.
Okay. Well, have a good time with your family. Thank you for the materials you've sent to the committee on Route 7, and we'll talk about it later. And obviously, as you mentioned, this is really for the town and the county to work with the state. It's a state road, but to the extent Complete Streets, we've got some ideas on some things that they should look at that would be traffic calming. I think we got to offer those.
I mean, I would love to see it to become a total boulevard, but I know that's not reasonable and it's not going to happen. But certainly we can. There are things that we can do to make it.
Politics is the art of the possible. I never say something can never happen. I mean, people said, "Oh, the co-op block is never going to get fixed," but it did get fixed. People said, "We'll never get a new Rexford Bridge," but we got a new one. We got a turnaround there. Lots of things that people said were never going to happen, they have, and so you just got to keep pushing, and that's what the business we're in. So,
absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Did you finish your summary on the Mohawk Golf Club?
Yeah,
Laura?
I think we got it. It'll probably still come back to you guys a couple more times, but yeah, I'll just put that note in the next planning board.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they want to say on 3900? I mean, on the Mohawk Golf Club before we leave that? Okay. 3900 State Street and Union Street projects. So,
Yeah, so this one you guys looked at the last time, and I thought you had a really good recommendation to add a sidewalk. Your recommendation was actually to add a sidewalk from Albany Street all the way to State Street. I did push for that. This plan only shows a sidewalk in front of the lots that they're proposing to change, but this is their proposed sidewalk right here. See it right here, and they're also showing street trees, which I like. So
can we ask them to move that sidewalk all the way down to Albany Street, or is that too heavy of a lift for this?
we did. We can ask again. I mean, I'm always into that.
Man, it would be nice if you can get from State Street to Albany Street on a sidewalk, I guess. So, I mean, unless it's a big lift to get the additional, is it one more house that gets you to Albany Street, or,
It's actually quite a ways.
Oh, okay, well.
The only other thing, I don't know if this falls into Complete Streets realm or not, but this shaded line that you see is actually the line for tractor trailers, because right now there's tractor trailers of cars that come to be delivered, like new cars. You know how you see them, there's like 6 of them, and they're all like funky on the 18-wheeler. When they come and they drop off their new cars right now, they are not going on the site to drop off their new cars. They're actually either pulling into the turn lane on State Street and dropping off the new cars there, or they're pulling into these side streets. This is South Bacon Ave, and the other one is South Amherst Ave. And they're dropping the cars, they're pulling the 18-wheelers onto these side streets, and then they're unloading the cars on the side streets, which is really disruptive to the residential neighborhoods on the side streets. So the planning board was trying to figure out a way that they could get the 18-wheelers onto this parcel. This is the shaded areas, the turn radiuses that the 18-wheelers would need to go to get into this parcel and then out. So this is showing that with this proposal, the 18-wheelers would theoretically be able to get off the streets. The only thing that I think is missing is there isn't anywhere on the parcel where they can actually park and unload. So I'm not, and I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, complete streets wise. I suppose figuring out ways to get 18-wheelers not to be standing on side streets in some ways falls under complete streets. But I don't know. I think it really just needs to have a way that an 18-wheeler can kind of actually have a spot to pull off, like inside of the parcel.
But couldn't they reduce the number of auto parking spaces there and make it an offload segment of the parking lot?
Well, they don't even have to. I mean, it's a temporary thing. It's a matter of 20 or 30 minutes, right? And that's all.
It's
that's all
1 to
parking.
2 hours.
Yeah, but that's still all parking for vehicles, right? Like where they store their additional cars and things.
Yeah, and so maybe that is what they're getting at with it, is that they would just kind of park the
Yeah,
right
I
here.
don't see why they
Yeah.
couldn't do that. There should be 2 lanes there. By the time it pulls in, there's still room for someone to go around. And it seems like that's kind of the back lot area. I think it's a, in addition to complete streets or whatever, it's a safety issue. I have seen them unload in the middle of State Street before. I didn't know they were going on the side streets. That's not appropriate in my opinion, at all.
No, it's not.
And
no,
State
it's
Street's a safety issue. I think they should just pull in here, stop, unload them, and be on their way. I don't, and they don't even have to go around the parking lot. They can stay within the lines that are shown here with the turning radius, in my opinion. I know it's not that simple, but it should be.
Jim, so you're saying in this new gray parking lot, they should unload the cars in that lot, right?
Right by those 2
Um,
trees that you see in the lot, right by the turning radius, the gray shaded area. Yeah, I mean, they can just
Yeah.
park. I mean, what they're blocking cars that they're trying to sell, right? I mean, most of the cars that are in for service or whatever most likely aren't going to be there, or they could, realign things. They don't have that parking now as it is, right? So
No,
it
they
could be-
don't. They only have this right now.
yeah, I think a requirement should be that, drop off has to be on site and, just reorganize your new parking lot so that you're not blocking in customers. I don't think it's that hard. They're getting a whole lot of parking out of this. Let's get them off the street and make it safer, both for pedestrians on the sidewalk, but also just in general for traffic, with not loading off site. That's my 2 cents. I'm done. I dealt with this exact thing in another community. Same thing. They were dropping off cars in village streets and the neighbors did not like it.
No, it's really disruptive to the residential neighborhoods. At some point, sometimes they even have 2 of them doing it at the same time, and then emergency services can't get through.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should insist on Jim's point. It's not just a nuisance. I mean, it's a nuisance for the people on South Fagan Avenue and really motorists on State Streets or Central Avenue. So we should ask for that to be part of the approval for the project.
Okay,
There's-
so I'll reiterate, sidewalk all the way to Albany Street and drop off has to be on site. I just heard it's okay if they don't have a designated spot on site as long as the tractor trailer can fit and they don't do it outside of their site.
Okay.
Okay, any other
Anything
comments
else
on
on
that?
3900 State Street? Okay, good. Let's move on to 31 East Street then, please.
So 31 East Street, might actually be better if I bring up a different map, but is a current dry storage area that is going to the planning board for updates. And it's right along the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail, and they're proposing more landscaping. Thoughtfully, I'm not sure if there's things we can think about that would help with complete streets, but if the planning board is touching the parcel and, you guys have ideas of something that might make a good connection there. I'm actually going to bring it up on a different map. It's probably
That's
really hard.
what I was
So this is a
going
building that used to be owned by the town, and they stored snowplow vehicles and other vehicles really at this end of town. It probably wasn't a good decision for the town to sell it, maybe, because it's nice to have vehicles already over at the other end of town compared to them having to drive all the way from WTRY Road. But do you know, Laura, are they making a change in use or something, or why would this even be in front of the planning board now for site plan review or?
Yeah, it's a tenant change. They did propose to add, right now, actually, there's no bathrooms. And there's a fair number of people that are there. So,
Okay.
Where are we? I can't
Okay,
picture where we are. I'm
here's
sorry.
the Rexford Bridge that's being built on my aerial.
Oh, okay,
Here's
I'm
the
sorry,
Rexford
okay.
traffic circle.
Yeah, up
This
the
is
hill. I got it.
Williams. Yeah, Williams comes in here, Middle Street, East Street. This is, I'll just zoom in for a second. Like when they redid the Rexford traffic bridge, they built, this is a public parking access to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail. And this property is directly adjacent to the public access to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail. I mean, I thought maybe complete.
Any
streets
chance we
wise-
could get some more parking spaces for the Hudson Mohawk bike path right there instead of just having 4 or 5 maybe? I mean, is there any accommodation they might give us that we could get a few more cars so the public would have more opportunity to park there and hop on the bike path?
I can ask. I do have to tell you, because I bring this project to so many different boards. It's not showing up very well in this aerial, but I can tell you that you'd get a big fight to pave more parking, because right here is a it's like a nice wildflower field, and the CAC is trying really hard to protect pollinator habitat. So like,
You've also got a pretty good slope headed toward Balltown, I think, if you go to the left of the screen here, right? As you go down,
This
it's a
is-
hill there with that
this
emergency
is,
access.
and this is also a very large cul-de-sac. Like you can see there's a car parked here. If these are full, you can actually fit quite a few more cars in and around. And this is actually gated, so I mean, you probably shouldn't, but you could.
And
a-
there's some parking right by the bridge too, isn't there?
Oh yeah, you're right. There's also a public parking lot right here, which can fit a ton of cars. This can fit.
I
Well,
go
there's-
by there regularly and I've never seen that little lot filled.
There's also a parking lot on the other side of Balltown.
Right
And then
here.
technically there's parking in the town park as well, but it's kind of parallelish, but
Over here.
not really.
Yeah. Yeah, parking is probably not an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, don't mess with the CAC's wildflower garden.
Yeah, they would.
Okay.
You would get a fight on your hands for that.
Well, I mean, I guess I was just wondering further down, is there, where this triangle narrows down? I mean, it could be there's some trees in there, but I don't know. It was just a thought.
Mhm.
What kind of business did you say it was? It was,
It's called an underlayment business. I'm still not.
Isn't this where the concrete, they have like the ready mix concrete trucks there? Is that-
Well,
isn't that
right
the-
now there's a concrete business.
Okay.
there. Yeah, the one that's proposed to go in there is an underlayment, which I think also uses concrete, but they don't have the forms like they have right there. And those were actually not approved. So as part of the approval of the new tenant, like all of that outdoor storage is going to go away. And
Okay,
hard to see on that plan. There's one of the reasons I brought it to Complete Streets is that they're going to update the landscaping. So I think they're going to try and landscape along the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail just to make it look slightly nicer when people are using it.
yeah,
But I-
that'd be my only comment, was that I know using that stretch, there's a lot of outdoor storage on that on that property. And if it is a change of use, and they're gonna get rid of that, if there's landscaping or fencing or something to screen it from the bike path.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put that in because I think that's good to come from you guys. So landscaping along bike path is important.
they're adding in 2 dumpsters too? Or, and
There's actually dumpsters there already, but yes, they're showing where their dumpsters would be.
If they look at fencing, Laura, it'd be nice to have something that's more natural versus say a chain link fence with pieces of metal between it that block the view. Something that's a little more in keeping with the fact that that's getting into kind of a historic part of the town where the canal used to run through,
Yeah, so
type of thing.
essentially more
Just be nice not
natural.
to have a metal chain link fence or something.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Okay, let's move on to the Broken Inn.
Okay, this is my last one for you guys. Oops. Didn't realize I didn't turn that one. 30. Oops. That's right. So, the Broken Inn is still trying to work on the intersection, and they came up with a new plan that they submitted to the planning board. This is less than what you guys saw before. I don't know if you remember what you saw before, but before the kind of hatched off parking benching area was bigger, and the parking stalls were closer to Clifton Park. So on the one hand, that defined the edge of Clifton Park a little better, but on the other hand, cars would then be backing right out into the road, which was a problem on that street. So so this one has the parking spots closer to the building with a little more room for the cars to back out before they get to the edge of Clifton Park. And it's also not quite defining the intersection of Crescent with Clifton Park, but it's getting closer. Like right now, from this building all the way over to this is where the grass starts. From this building all the way over to the grass is just pavement with no lines on it or anything. So I mean, this certainly takes up probably a good 30 feet of that wide open space and narrows it down a little bit more.
So the town itself is not interested in making Crescent more of a T with Clifton Park Road, so that, you know, Crescent would, I guess, kind of curve around. You'd take some of the green space or a tree or two at the very end of the point of Crescent and Clifton Park Road and make it more of a T intersection as it comes up to Clifton Park Road. I mean, I don't see that here. I mean, maybe this is adequate. I mean, you still have traffic coming out of the alley and cars coming from Clifton Park Road, so it'll still be kind of a no man's land area with cars and pedestrians entering this intersection from Crescent and Clifton Park Road. And I mean, I don't know, it's not as clean as having a nice T intersection, I guess. But
Yeah, I wouldn't say the town's not interested in doing that. I think they still are. One of the things that the planning board said to them is, if you do this, it might be temporary because the town is still trying to do something a little bit larger on the intersection of Crescent and Clifton.
That's almost what I was. Sorry, that's almost what I was going to say. This seems like a nice maybe potential change for the side of the building there, but I still think more needs to be done within the right of way to address that large area of pavement. And this looks like it's changing the parking that's there, because aren't there spots that front end facing Knott Street now?
There, yes.
So these would all be parking up against the building then and changing that?
Our highway department doesn't really like those spots. But yeah, it is changing that.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them either, but I think it's the curb. I don't know, maybe the curb line's different, but anyway, that would change.
No,
But yeah, I still think there's an issue with that
You
corner.
do have to remove a little bit of curb to do this plan, because there's a little bit of curb. Can you see my, yeah, there's a little bit of curb that sticks out right here to protect those
Right.
parking spots. So you'd
Right.
have to remove like probably 6 feet of curb. So I'm gonna write still need to do more. Well, potentially town still needs to do more for safety at Clifton Park and Crescent.
It's gone through a lot of evolutions. It's sort of like come back to where closer to what it originally is, actually.
This is very close to what it originally is. Yes.
And we had mixed the roundabout there
Mhm.
because the fire department had an issue with it. But if you were able to do something, you'd have traffic only going in one direction, that the parking would have to worry about there.
Oh, like something in the middle.
Yeah. But I really like that they want the outdoor seating area and everything. I think that's a huge improvement.
Yeah, I feel like nobody's ever disagreed with that. Although, I mean, planning board level, the outdoor dining was a bit of an issue. This is just public seating that anybody could sit at. I mean, probably mostly people who are eating the ice cream would at it. And also the tables won't be able to be configured like this because he's got to keep all the tables on the private property line, but I think the general striping and the location of the barriers between the cars and the like the pedestrian area would potentially be allowed well, actually permanently, unless the town undertakes a bigger project that changes the Clifton Park and Crescent intersection.
Yeah, I'd still advocate for continuing to look at that intersection. I don't know if it's just me, but there are a ton of cars going down there to go to the school in the morning. Probably not as many in the afternoon, and a lot of kids walking to the high school. There's just still a lot going on there, and it seems like it's even more. And the cars are flying now. As a matter of fact, people are getting so frustrated going down Clifton Park. They're starting to go down Valencia now as well, and even over to Regent. So there's still a lot of traffic going in and out of the high school in the morning. A lot of kids walking. Just a lot going on over there.
Okay, I'll put that. Needs more.
Okay. So this is still in flux at the planning board and the town highway superintendent, or
Yeah,
is
still
the
is.
planning board getting close to giving the green light to what we see right here and being done with it?
No, I think this is the planning board only saw it for one meeting. So
Okay.
it's still work in progress.
Okay.
You know, Laura, I don't know if anyone's looking to do a demo project, but you could almost do a demo project with this to see what people thought. 'Cause, like, this doesn't preclude still doing anything at the intersection with Crescent,
Mhm.
but you could almost, we still have those cones sitting over at the highway garage. You could almost kind of put the cones out in the same way and do some temporary paint on the ground and just kind of see what it looked like. If people are still kind of not sure what is, when you get to a point where this is a little further along, demo projects don't necessarily have to be just complete streets. Even showing how this parking layout would work and how it would change the look and layout of that part of it is something that can be done really easily. Like I said, we've already got the cones.
Yeah, we
set
do.
Set up for a weekend and just see what it looks like. See how it may or may not narrow the road and
Well,
what
You
it
do
makes
have
out
the
of.
cones, but there's no temporary cutting the shrubbery away and chipping off that point and making Crescent more of a T with Clifton Park. That would be more than.
No.
What-
Just kind of just what we're looking at here to at least get an idea of what it would do to change that. Because I don't think this precludes
Yeah.
still doing something somewhere else.
Okay.
This
And
or
that's
something
the
like
advantage of this. It probably wouldn't interfere with the town doing more later.
right.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on Crescent and Clifton Park Road and the Broken Inn? Then we'll move on to Rivers Ledge at Niskuna.
Okay, these don't have to take too long. Just an update on Rivers Ledge. There's a little bit more pavement around the building because they are unable to do the underground parking. And so this will probably come back to you guys again next month. They're trying to figure out what it's going to look like to have the parking garages so close to the bike path. And you can take a look. There's public parking that would be built to access the bike path. That's this parking lot here. They have a sidewalk that goes from the parking lot down to the bike path here. They also have a sidewalk connecting over to the new building, which would have some commercial space. They're talking about putting like a little diner, like a breakfast and lunch diner in there. And I know, just to refresh your memory, we at one time looked at seeing if you could make like a sidewalk connection down Aqueduct Road to the other place, but it's a lot of wetlands and things. So we decided the best thing to do is just funnel everybody onto the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail to get over to any different part of this community.
Are these
So
garages?
Go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead, Bill.
So instead of walking out on Aqueduct Road, the foot traffic would go in the back on the hike and bike path to get down to, say, the traffic circle at Aqueduct and Balltown Road.
Yeah, correct. I think we decided it was better to put people on the trail. The topography and the wetlands and stuff would make it hard to do a sidewalk along Aqueduct there.
Now, also, is there a pump station that's part of this that will service East Street and William Street in those neighborhoods?
No, there was there was a plan for that at one point, but it was too expensive. The gravity line would have had to have been like, I don't know, 40 feet deep or something. You would pump it up to the top of Aqueduct, but then in order to get it down to the
Anthony
down to
Street.
the yeah.
Anthony Street.
Anthony Street, yes, it was so deep. It was so deep and underneath wetlands, and it had a hard culvert crossing, so
Okay.
it ended up becoming a low pressure sewer system. So all of everything down there is on it. It's on its own little low pressure pump that's inside the building, and there's
Yes.
no public lift station.
Okay. So, didn't need to
That's
do that. So what do we really need to decide on this or make a recommendation or just,
Doing an update unless you see something that you wanted to comment on.
I guess Laura, as part of this overall development, have they done anything like along the bike path? I see there's the common parking there for park access for like communal bike pump or bike repair station that some people have along bike paths where it's just like a little station with a communal bike pump and some tools that are just if they have like a lanyard on them so you can't steal them. But
That's a great idea. They probably would do something like that too. I can ask them. But no, they don't have that yet.
Or is this mixed use or all residential? I didn't hear that.
Oh, the 55 unit building?
Yeah.
It's mixed use, but it's only a tiny bit of commercial. Do you see this little pop out spot here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they would propose to put like a diner and like a little, it's a very small amount of commercial.
So bike racks, covered bike racks or something like that for that use would definitely be something. And that could tie right into what Andrew was talking about. If they did that here, something like Andrew's talking about would actually be better served being kind of near a business that's got eyes on it, because those stations do get vandalized over time. People rail on them pretty good.
Covered bike racks and a bike service station.
would it be a push way too far, Laura, to think about a bathroom for men and women that ride on the bike path that would have a relief station somewhere along here? Or is that?
There's one in the park, isn't there?
Yes, this is
Oh, wait, wait.
there's a public bathroom not very far
Okay.
from here.
Okay.
So my other question, Laura, the covered parking space, is it just a top over the spaces? It's not a garage?
No, it'll be a garage.
It will be a garage. So with a wall behind it. Then I think it would have a similar comment to what Andrew made before. If they're taking a lot of landscaping down, putting some landscaping back in just to buffer the walls that'll be created there from all those structures would be nice.
Yeah, so
Between it and the bike path. I know there are a lot of trees back there, so hopefully they can, or maybe it's just brush and weed trees. I don't know, but
so
something
buffer garage will
to
be like
break that up, because that'll end up looking like a wall.
it's long. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I think they're also even on a retaining wall. So okay, so I got covered bike racks. So the covered bike racks would be for the residents or for anybody who is using the commercials area?
Well, I'm thinking bike racks for the commercial area. I mean, people,
okay.
especially something like a small diner or something, people typically like to ride there or would stop there on a ride.
Yeah.
So covered
good.
racks potentially for the residents or a
Mhm.
space in the building for the residents. But I was thinking more for people who would utilize the business from off site.
Okay, yeah, so covered bike racks for commercial area.
And if not covered, regular ones, but people like to cover their bikes. If it starts raining, it's a place to ditch your bike and go get a coffee,
Yeah, it's true. That's completely true. And then a bike service station, and then buffer garage walls to bike path. See, that's why I bring things to you guys. You're amazing.
Okay, last one is the Pulcinelli Drive subdivision.
I thought maybe we had looked at it before, but I looked in our agendas and I couldn't find this one. I may bring this up on a different map. This is over off of Row Road. And there's a little bit of forest that's there's a stub called Pulcinelli Drive that comes up to, and they're proposing to do 2 lots. I don't really know of any connections that we might be able to make, but I always bring these things to you guys.
I think you
This
talked
is
about this once.
Did we?
Maybe not,
Okay.
maybe not
I
formally,
couldn't
but I remember
find
talking about something like this in that area. Maybe it wasn't
Yeah.
this, but I remember talking about something up there.
Yeah, and maybe we just don't have any recommendations, and that's why I couldn't find it. Which is fine. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it.
I don't think there's much.
Well, if we, this, I mean, I see Rose Hill Boulevard, then Angelina up to Antonia and then maybe back on Van Antwerp. But, you know, if there are students on Row Road or even people over in East Country Club and they want to get to the high school, if they bike down Row Road, then in on Polsinelli, I mean, if there was a hike and bike trail that went through here and then came out onto, you know, Van Antwerp Road somewhere, if there's is there a little chip of undeveloped land that's over here?
Which you've also got
No.
Come up on
Also
Van
got-
Antwerp, so
you
you
got
could
wetlands
get
in
over
there,
there and get onto Greens Farm Road that would get you over to,
What? Yeah,
next
Jim
to the high
would
school.
Jim
So it'd
tell
be
you
a bikeway
The
that
whole
would
back-
get you over to not Street East.
no, probably not. The
I'm not-
whole back is wetlands. The whole back of the parcel is wetlands.
Yeah, given the neighborhood, I don't know that kind of looking at the trade-offs. I don't know that even promoting the idea of a trail through there through wetlands would buy us much versus the
Well, Laura, where your cursor just was, though, I think this aerial's a little outdated. There's, I guess, a little more to the south. What's that road there? Saint Gerard.
St.
Aren't
Gerard.
there 2 houses built there now?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're right. So I guess it's not all wetlands back there. I guess since there's
Yeah,
development.
the wetlands are on this parcel. They're
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Laura, does town have any fee in lieu of for anything like park and rec fees or anything like that when you get
Mhm.
lots developed? We do, right?
Yeah. Yep. It's like $1,500 per lot or something like that in the R1 zone.
Park and rec fee.
Yeah.
Would this green space be a walk area, like a nature preserve area that would be maybe a town park that would just be a passive park? Would it
Oh,
access way to a passive
Not
park?
actually green space. Do you see how these two homes come off of Vincenzo?
Yep.
They're proposing to do the exact same thing off of Polsinelli. So like these two homes, the driveways come and they hit Vincenzo. They would right along this part here, put a home here and a home here. This would stay all privately owned. This back part would be to the two homes, kind of like where these lots are. I'll just highlight them. Really similar. And then this back part goes into this other lot over here.
Where would be the access way if they wanted to build houses in the back part? What road would they tie to?
They don't have an access way.
No.
They can't. That would be it.
Yeah.
Right. That would be the 2 lots. And that's
Those be
it.
the
Well,
two
yeah,
lots.
I guess I'm wondering, could the town ask that this, I don't know, be a conservation easement where it's just walkable green space?
Oh, we did. They said no. But I could put that as your recommendation. I keep running out of paper. I'm sorry. Hmm.
I mean, a developer obviously wants to get a house on every square foot, but you know, it'd be in the town's interest to get some.
I don't know that that's true in this case because he's only putting 2 3-acre lots on like a 10-acre
Okay.
parcel. But yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So Laura,
So
the only reason I raised the fee in lieu of thing is I'm just thinking we're seeing more of these kind of infill lots where nothing really happens, and it's a policy decision obviously have to be made by the town board. But you know, in addition to a park and rec fee, if something comes in, I'm just wondering as a way to start promoting getting funds put together for doing complete streets, if we could have a similar new lot
Yeah,
fee.
if you can't put in a sidewalk or a multi-use path, then we collect a fee in lieu of.
Right.
Yeah.
Something it wouldn't have to be large, but that could start to add up on lots like this or others where it may not make sense or something isn't going in. It starts to build a pot of money.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, to Jim's point, I guess this area, these are minor subdivisions, I assume, but if this whole area was subdivided at the same time, it would have been a major. which
Yeah.
might have had more
More connections.
considerations there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, we're trying to retrofit and fill in, you know, big portions of what's been already done in the town and you know, it takes money and effort and all that kind of thing. And we do have a park and rec. If this is enough of a priority for our residents and elected officials, maybe that's another thing to consider. Again, it's a policy thing way beyond us, but just kind of thinking about it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea.
You know, maybe for the future or something to put the seed out there now and see if anyone picks up on it, thinks it's a good idea to take on.
Would we have to tell the planning board about that idea
I mean,
or
I'll
the
just
master
put it
plan?
as our recommendation on this. That we couldn't really identify a sidewalk or a multi-use path, but potentially if we're doing code amendments, you should consider adding an impact fee for these places that can't fit them.
Perfect.
Okay, let's move on to the transportation chapter of the comp plan. Would like to thank Catherine and Carla for submitting comments on the 2013 plan and recommendations for what the 2023 plan might look like. And before the meeting started, I did ask Laura, is the comp plan committee open to allowing Complete Streets to do a first draft of the transportation chapter for the 2023 comp plan? Or would they prefer that we provide comments from the Complete Streets Committee on what the 2023 plan, well, recommendations for what the transportation chapter of 2023 would look like? And so that's kind of a question that we have to get an answer to. And I would also say I did about a half hour before the meeting submit. I think I sent Catherine's comments to the committee. If I didn't, I'll have to do that, but sent Carla's. And Laura, could we ask Carla if she just wants to say a bit about her thoughts on the transportation chapter? And I mean, you've gotten the stuff. She has some good ideas. I thank Carla for looking at some other plans for Ithaca and Hanover. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what you think would improve our transportation chapter, Carla?
Well, I mean, I guess I was just looking
You're
at
muted.
it in terms of organization and such. So I started to look at a few other plans, like I think I mentioned the city of Ithaca, and I walked around a lot in the town of Swarthmore, where I saw a lot of complete street ideas implemented. So I looked at what they have in terms of that, and I looked at their, they have a county comp plan, as well as like a town comp plan in conjunction with a few other towns. But I just was starting to look at things, like I'm not a planner, so I realized as I looked at it more and more, I realized my ignorance. But I learned
You are a
lot
planner,
doing
Carla.
this,
Let me
actually.
reassure you on that point.
So, I mean, I think like, I mean, I think like when we were looking at the Knott Street extension idea, how that should be connected to River Road, it wasn't actually addressed specifically in the plan. There was some like reference to it, like in a paragraph that it was sort of hanging, and then there was like a recommendation or implementation about connecting like subdivisions that are disconnected, but there was not an actual, you know, it wasn't a goal and like, you know, an implementation strategy that went to it. And you could probably more easily point to that and say, well, this is in our plan. And I mean, we talked about that, I think, when we went through it all, but it, like, one thing I noticed is like the introduction, like for the Ithaca plan, it was just like a very, like Catherine was talking about, a very positive like paragraph of how they wanted to become a multimodal community, and whereas like sort of the comp plan here was more talking about the marriage of land use, and it was sort of more like a how-to sort of thing. So I mean, but I like the layout of the comp plan for the Niskayuna comp plan, how they do in 2013, they do like the goal, and then they, for each goal, they talk about the, what is it, the recommendations
And then the implementation. Yeah,
strategies.
so
And I think that's, I mean, that's great, and I think that's an awesome way to do it. And I mean, it's going to be so developed from all the work that you know, the committees have done on things that it seems like they've really accomplished so much now. But it's just, I guess I was just more looking at it in an organization way. So anyway, but I'm trying to think if there's like, yeah, so the introduction, they also talked about, like they sort of had a introduction, and then they talk about the streets and like the major corridors, which, like, you know, they talked about, you know, limited access highways, arterials, collector roads, and the issues, like, you know, the issues with each, but just the way it was laid out, this is all in the beginning, whereas like that was sort of more in the land use section, I think, a little bit. They talked about Balltown Road and the issues with that, and that was good, but it was just one road. And you know, obviously with Complete Streets, we've identified a lot of different things going on now, but just to try to address all the major roads, and then talk about, you know, crash data, and as Catherine was talking about, and the traffic issues and traffic numbers and such, but just to sort of bring it down in a whole kind of methodological way, you know, more so, because it would be
So
easier.
I think both you and Catherine were talking about kind of that holistic look, which is what kind of roads do we have, and what kind of issues do we have with the road and bike and pedestrian movement system that we have, and then, you know, articulating some Complete Streets goals, which is certainly that our transportation system's got to be based on more than just getting the cars around, that it's got to be, you know, cars, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And then if we have some, you know, recommendations in some areas that, you know, we're specific about those. It's kind of like incorporating the recommendations and implementation strategies that are in the current plan, but putting some of those in. But I mean, Catherine also mentioned that the comp plans have kind of gone back to a 1990s model of Balltown Road, some different things that, you know, could be done there. But I mean, that's, you know, 20, 25 years ago. And that, you know, we might need to take a fresh look at that. And I mean, I just think you have, you know, lots of good ideas here, and kind of both you and Catherine strengthened the positives about, well, what is a definition of Complete Streets? What are some of the goals that we have in mind in terms of pedestrians and bicyclists, bus people, commuters, and you know, where have we fallen short, and what are the kinds of things that we need to be doing, and obviously even some reference to some of the things that have done. We've got the Complete Streets map for the town, which might be an appendix to the plan. And Catherine even mentions, I mean, we have made some progress on some things like the Knott Street block, the new Rexford Bridge, the roundabout, some other things that, you know, we have done. And if we see areas where we need to do more, some examples of those, and try to get those into the plan. So
Yeah, they some other I mean, like the Ithaca plan actually laid out I think I mentioned this, but laid out land use at sort of the marriage between the two later on in the section, and I thought that was good. And also they also talked about community education, which actually was mentioned in the survey that we did, and that was brought up a lot in like question 14, which I looked at. But that, you know, talking about that in terms of how that impacts it too. But anyway.
Andrew, have you any thoughts on the comp plan and what either Carla has articulated or Catherine has sent forward to us?
No, I think I'm on board with what they're saying. I think we should certainly provide input on it.
Okay. Any thoughts, Jim Levy or Tess, on how we might interact with the transportation chapter in the comp plan?
I appreciated all the research Carla did, especially going to look at the different cities and towns and comparing with Ithaca, even like she said, it was just a little bit bigger So no, I read her suggestions and I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, and just one thing, we don't have to reinvent the wheel on a lot of this moving forward. Like you said, Bill, definition of complete streets and what our goals and objectives should be. You know, things like NACTO and the Complete Streets Coalition and other things have all sorts of recommendations about what should be included and looked at. So we can look at those and see how they may or may not fit into this unit. They're not all going to, but we don't have to, if we're asked to help create it or the comp plan committee, they don't have to come up with this on their own. There are a lot of guides already in terms of what you should do. And we can just pull from those, you know, models and you know, make it the language we want and only use what makes sense for here in Niskayuna. So that will help a lot in terms of pulling information together and prioritization, things like that.
Taking those general things, I mean, do we need to include that, but take the next step of, well, what are some specifics that we think need to happen in Niskayuna to make our town more walkable and bikeable? I mean, would the comp plan have our spreadsheet on 25 projects that we think would make the town more walkable and bikeable, or is that too much detail?
No, they have that. And
Yeah.
also Jack added cost estimates to it too.
Okay.
So I was gonna say, I'd defer to Laura on that, but I would recommend that any list like that be an appendix, not an actual part of the comp plan, because that way we can update it regularly without having to ask for an amendment to the comp plan.
Okay.
We've
So
run into
be
that-
advertised as here's some ideas from Complete Streets on how to steps that might achieve some of the general goals that have been articulated for what we need to do. And
Right, general goals, objectives, thoughts, things like that absolutely should go into the plan, but any lists and things like that should be something else that doesn't get tied into a comp plan revision. It needs to be easier to amend in the future.
Yeah, so when I say they have the list, I mean they have it to like compare it to what their recommendations are and stuff. I mean, an appendix I don't think would be a bad idea, but like I'm providing them with like, you know, a list of complete streets things, list of tree council things, list of climate smart things, you know, to look and see how they fit into the plan.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be a reference, just referencing that, you know, Complete Streets keeps a list of, you know, priority projects or something. Again, just not documenting it in here, so we have to go back and revise it every year. We don't want to do a comp plan revision every year for changing our list or something like that.
okay. Do you know, Laura, what kind of timeline we have here? I mean, is the comp plan committee try to have something a year from now or 6 months, or I mean, what kind of time do you think we have to work on this or get our input in?
It's still a pretty long time frame, but I would say you don't need to wait. You know, like we could synthesize Catherine's and Carla's comments and anybody else who wanted to comment. We could put together, I gotta get the list from Jack that has the cost estimates. And send all that over to maybe you could even sort of appoint a point person from Complete Streets that was kind of like working back and forth with the comp plan on things. But I mean, I think it'll be like an evolution. Like we can give them some comments. Maybe they add a little bit. They do a public hearing. We add more comments. It's a back and forth process for a long time.
So if other members of the committee get a chance to read Chapter 7 and have ideas like Catherine and Carla have, we should send those to you, and then we'll try to maybe do a unified message to the comp plan committee that we kind of hit the high points of the comments that have been made by Complete Streets folks and send that to the comp plan committee. I mean, should we do that, or just let individual members submit comments to you and forward those to Dart Strayer and the comp plan committee, or should we try to do a unified message, I guess is a question I thought.
I mean, I think the easiest thing to do is collect all the comments that are coming from Complete Streets Committee in Complete Streets, collects them all, kind of, you know, pare them down into common threads and recommendations, and then give that to the comprehensive plan.
I agree. They're all volunteers as well. You know, and Laura works with all of us. So the more we can do to consolidate our thoughts and make them consistent across the board is better for everybody.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. Anything else on the comp plan before we move on?
I just
Okay.
say that I could put that together. If people wanted to send me the comments, I could
Okay.
put it into a more unified document.
Okay, that's very kind of you, Tess. So individual members read chapter 7 and they have comments like Catherine has and like Carla has. We can send those to Tess, and maybe Tess, you have 30 days or 6 weeks or something like that to kind of put together input from Complete Streets, and then forward that to the comp plan committee. Or if we've got a year, if we get them something within 60 days might be good, or I don't know, sooner if we can do it, I guess.
Back and forth, the sooner the better, but it
Sooner the
doesn't
better.
matter
Okay.
too much because we'll
Okay.
be going back and forth. But Jim, if you want to also, like, if there's just a couple simple NACDO, sheets that have some bullet points too, that might be useful to send to the whole committee.
I'll go through a couple guides and pull a bunch of things down. There might be some overlap, but let me see if I can pull together some kind of general recommendations for complete streets and walkability, things like that. And then we can kind of see how we want to go with those. And we can go down a big rabbit hole with this, but at least we'll give us something to start with.
Yeah, like on a broad. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'll pull something together
Right.
in the next week or so.
I sent out a draft of the 2023 goals for the committee, and sent those to folks to take a look at. I did have a good conversation with Andrew on these, and one thought that I had kind of articulated on the goals were I see them as kind of a committee document, something we might share with the supervisor and the town board. If we get a website on Complete Streets, we might put them out there. And it's really, I see them as a set of activities or projects that we're going to try to spend some energy on in the next year. And some of them may be as simple like Grand Boulevard, just kind of, or crosswalks on Knott and St. Joseph's and River Road, is keeping an eye on a project to make sure if there's a funding, a body that's got some grant money, to make sure they follow through and do it. But others are bigger things. And so people have talked about the importance of Route 7 and kind of focusing on that. So I guess I just, tried to list the things that we've shown some interest in, that we'd like to make some progress on this year, goals. And I see them as kind of areas where they're important. We've spent some energy on them in the past, and we want to keep spending some energy on them to help them fall into place. And so these are the goals. I don't know if people, Andrew did say he had some thoughts on the public education part of it. He recommended writing up the results of the town survey, then the transportation chapter, that should be second, and then our demonstration project for 2023, that should be third, and the others down below. So I'm certainly happy to make those modifications, and any others that people on the committee have. And with the understanding it's kind of a message to ourselves. I didn't want to cut it in half, because I feel like each area is something that people have had some interest in, they want to work on. Lise Corbin sent me a note saying, gee, I appreciate that you kept the utility quarters in here, even though it's been kind of slow moving on that, but it's something we don't want to forget. We may want to continue to do some work on. And like the Plum Street sidewalk is on here, that might be a done deal, but you never know. We want a crosswalk to Nicholas. It's unclear. Well, we want to make sure the school district follows through to do from the school district property line over to the sidewalk going to Hillside. So part of these are, once you get started, you kind of have to stay with it to make sure it actually gets done. And we've had to bug the county and other people to finish up on things. So I'll just stop there. Anybody have any further thoughts on the goals? And do you want to see some changes? And what would you like to see? I'd hope we could vote yes on these at our March 31 meeting, but I'm open to any input that people have and on the goals.
I just had a question. With Grand Boulevard, weren't they going to put sidewalks in or?
See, I think I was wrong on that. I mean, it's on the transportation improvement projects list that I think Catherine checked on that, and she said the county is going to repave Grand Boulevard. They're going to do some bike paths, and there's some mention of pedestrian improvements, but I don't know. I mean, I was hopeful that they'd at least maybe redo the asphalt pathways on Grand Boulevard, or they might even do concrete sidewalks, but
So
concrete sidewalks
they submitted 2 grant applications to the state. One was a repave, but adding bike lanes and crosswalks for safety. And the other one was doing sidewalks up and down Grand Boulevard. The only one that was funded was the paving with the bike lanes and the crosswalks.
Okay.
Okay.
But they've got it ready to go to submit it again. And I appreciate them even putting it together and submitting it, because that in and of itself was an improvement from the county.
So, I mean, that's kind of to my point that we appreciate the county applied for both. They only got one, so that's a good thing. But if they're willing to put a stamp on it and send it to someplace else to try to get the sidewalks, that's a good thing. And Complete Streets should stand behind them on that to continue to encourage the county to do things that contribute to safety of pedestrians and bicyclists. So we should say we support that, 100%. And anyway. That's why I changed the language on it, Carla. I'd originally thought sidewalks were part of the deal, but it's maybe only a maybe. But anyway, anyone else on the goals?
I thought they looked pretty good to me, Bill. They're pretty similar to what we had last year, but my experience with the boards is that's pretty normal. The only thing I just noticed just from flipping around, which I didn't notice before, is that it's the 2023 goals, but we have conduct demonstration project in 2022.
Yeah.
So if you're reorganizing the order, you just want to fix that typo, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, they seem pretty similar to what we had before.
Okay. Should I add our contributions to the transportation chapter of the master plan? I mean, that's kind of one thing we're going to be working
Here,
on.
right? Offer
Oh,
recommendation.
yeah, right. So 4 is going to move up to
2.
2.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Or 1.
Or 1. Yeah, you're right.
That's you.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Elise Corbin on 1 asked me, "Hey, Bill, that survey data is 2 years old. Should we write that up or should we do a new survey?" I mean, we could save the data to do some comparison with 2021 to 2023, or would we be better advised just to write up what we had for 2021?
Well, if there's value in including it in the, I guess, comprehensive plan section as background info, it's probably worth writing up. I'm not entirely familiar with what the turnout was on the survey, if there was good information that came from it or not.
I think there was.
It was really good. I don't think a lot of the issues have changed a whole lot, if at all, especially because it's been COVID years. I was going to mention this, Bill, but I said I'd just kind of wait until we talk about it specifically. I think the reason we got bogged down in not getting those survey results out is we tried very hard to get a lot of really specific detail out of that we could put out to the public. And I'm wondering if it'd be better to try and get more of a summary of the survey done that we can get posted and get out there. We can always dig into the details later. But remember, we were talking about kind of categorizing things and trying to pull in certain details. And we were working with Clark, and I think it just got overwhelming because, like, what do we have, 260 or something responses, I think. And
I think we had about 300, something like that.
yeah, so I'm wondering if we can maybe
Carla
do
had
that.
a nice write-up. I mean, members did take a question, kind of tried to
Right.
summarize the detail on each questions, and we still have that. So it's
Yeah.
it's eminently doable, and we can get something together. And it could actually, as Andrew mentions, if we have it as a standalone document, it can be referred to in the comp plan, so people can go and look at it. And if we have a Complete Streets website, we can put it out there. And
if we want to do another survey and do similar questions, then you can do a comparison, as Andrew had mentioned. So that's something to certainly consider as well.
Okay.
In the future.
okay. How about if we move on to priority letters? Could we talk about those for a second? And I tried to look at what members suggested. And I did say that I thought we had a really good meeting with the school district. They seemed to be open to looking at our input. I think that we may have stubbed our toe. We did send our input to Bonaparte, the architects for the school district, but I heard from people on the school board, a year later, 15 months later, that they had never seen our stuff. And so if I had it to do over again, I would have sent it to the school board members, that memo. So our input on each specific campus, they would have seen. But Jim Levy and Andrew and Laura and I met with the school superintendent of schools and with 3 board members, and we kind of looked at each school campus. We gave them our input, and they seemed very open to it. As a matter of fact, they had asked the architects for the school district to come up with a plan for each campus on how to make pedestrian and bike safety access better. And so we're at a point now where we probably need to communicate with them to say, gee, we're very much supportive of you having the engineers do this work. We hope you do incorporate a few more of our ideas, but our presentations at public privilege of the floor have seemed to have been helpful. And I take that as a model, something that Paulina Manzo has said, and Andrew emphasizes that, we need to follow our letter with the meeting. And I think Rory Fluman, the county manager, if we asked him for a sit down and maybe the county legislators from District 3, that he'd be very open to doing that we've got our 3 priorities for the county. Let's have the meeting. And when I bump into county legislators, they're like, yeah, Bill, we got to get together for a cup of coffee. And I'm like, well, let's do it. Let's have the county manager there, our District 3 county elected officials, and some Complete Streets folks, and just talk about, here's the things we're asking you to help us with on the county level. And Mark Scaldo, the Region 1 director from DOT, I mean, obviously he's going to be having meetings maybe with the county and the town supervisor on Troy Road. But, if we do get a chance to have a sit down with him, certainly we want to talk about safety measures on Troy Road. But, we have some other things. We've got the crosswalk on Hickory. We've got maybe a strip of sidewalk going from Crescent down to Rankin Road. We have the school zone at Craig School and a possible crosswalk at Craig School. So if we get a chance to talk to him, and we certainly share our big Complete Streets map, we'd say, yeah, Troy Road maybe is the top of the list, but here's some other state road issues that we'd like your help on. And at least we get him on the radar. So he doesn't say, geez, I didn't know you were interested in getting these things done. We at least send him the letter. We ask for a meeting. We have the follow-up meeting, and we get a chance to speak orally with him and maybe some people from CDTC. So that's why I think they're good. So anyway, I didn't mean to deflect, but do people have any thoughts on, say, the priorities for each entity? And maybe Laura, you could put the list up and we could look at them again.
Yeah. So Bill, I think it's pretty similar to what we discussed, because last time we went through them,
Okay.
and I think we added. So, I mean, it looks consistent to me when I finish the minutes. I'll
Okay.
double check the minutes to the priority list. But what I'd say for next steps would be, maybe we can try and have this all ready for the next March meeting, is
Okay.
that maybe you come in, schedule a time with Jack and Clark and I, or whichever one of us can do it.
Mhm.
And we finalize these into letters, and then we could bring them for action at the next meeting.
Yep.
But this looks very similar to what we discussed before.
Do you think we need to sit down with the town supervisor on the letter so that, I mean, I know that when you and I met with Supervisor Syed, I mean, she gave him a quick read and signed them and sent them on. I don't know, Supervisor Puccioni might say, well, I want to look at your priorities and I want to go over it with you, so that maybe we could have a discussion with her. I mean, if she's going to sign, it goes to the state and the county and the school district, but not only is Complete Streets supporting those, but our town supervisor is too. And so,
Yeah, we've done, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think, and actually, I think a meeting with her prior, to actually taking action is a good idea, just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay.
We've also in the past taken the letters to the Economic Development Committee and actually had the town board pass a resolution in support of them. We have done that before.
That would
So,
be
I
great.
mean,
That'd be
yeah, we
great.
have a couple options, but I'd say, just in the interest of time, that let's try and put these in the letter format for the next meeting. If you just want to reach out and schedule a meeting with me, that'd be great.
And Andrew recommends that we ask for a meeting, that be a sentence in the letter, so that
We
we're
did have
supplying
that
you
in
with these
there at
things.
one, yes,
Yeah,
at one
and
point, but yeah, we
we're
can
asking for a
definitely-
meeting, and then we need to follow up, give them 3 weeks or whatever it is, and then get on their schedule for a meeting, so they can talk with us. So
Till then,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm hijacking the meeting from you really fast. Sounded like we've got some work to do on Route 7 and potentially we're scheduling a meeting for that. The grants update for Crosswalk in St. Joseph's is that it just keeps becoming more and more expensive, and I'm in some discussions with the contractor, going back and forth on materials, trying to bring this project back down into budget. But we're already talking about losing some things, which is super frustrating. So I'll have a little more information for you guys on that at the next meeting. Still proposing to finish all construction in the spring. Just trying really hard to keep that project in budget, and it's not going well. Plum Street sidewalk progress. I haven't put that out to bid yet, but that's the next stage on that. I don't know if we've had the spring demonstration projects meetings or not, but the last thing that I'm skipping to is that the supervisor's office is trying to schedule a meeting with Complete Streets, Planning Office, Engineering, and our grant writer, partly in the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. So trying to schedule that for March 9th at 3 p.m. I was going to specifically mention that here. I know that Ben O'Shea had been really interested in that grant, so I'm trying to make sure that he can attend that meeting, but also letting you guys know. And so hopefully what will come of that is that we'd be able to sit down with the grant writer and get them to start paying attention and working with us on that grant.
could some of us join that by Zoom if we're not in town?
Potentially, I can see. I mean, I love hybrid meetings.
I'd like to ask that because I won't be in town on the 9th, but I would like to be there. So if
Okay, I'll
it
ask.
could be made hybrid, that would be great.
They seem to work very well in the Schaefer room hybrid wise. I don't know if anybody's done that yet. But you can sit in the Schaefer room and the screen is just like another human sitting at the table, only it's, not a human. But anyway, yeah, I imagine we might be able to do that. And then I didn't have any other updates on 5 and 6. See how fast I can go through half the agenda?
On the SS4A, I mean, it's a meeting to talk about what we want to do, or do we need specifics to say, these are the 3 things that Complete Streets would like to see the town try to get money for out of the SS4A program?
So there's a couple things. It's actually just a meeting with the grant writer to talk about Complete Streets priorities and look for grants. The SS4A specifically is going to be a larger conversation, but we also want to have it with him at that meeting because I think that the general consensus is that we want that to be a larger project where we're working with the county and the state submittals.
Okay. Nothing on 5 or 6. Okay. Well, it's 4 o'clock. Anybody else have any thought they want to share with the committee before we adjourn for today's get together?
I just had a
Well-
quick question. I couldn't find, it looked like Catherine had already given input on the transportation, but I couldn't find it anywhere.
I'll have to send it to you. Maybe I only sent it to Laura and I didn't send it to everybody. So I'll do that right after the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And I could come to the meeting on Thursday, Laura? Would that be okay? Mostly I just want to listen.
Yeah, I think so. Yep. I'm working on it with the supervisor's office. So as soon as I finalize that date, I'll try and send it out to all of you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I move we adjourn our March 3 meeting of the Niskuna Complete Streets Committee. And I'd like to thank everyone for reviewing the materials that have been sent out. And, thank people that have offered comments on the priority letters, the goals on Route 7, the comp plan, various things we've been working on. And so we've been active doing these things. And I do feel, at least I feel like our new town board is more open to Complete Streets things. They are willing to expend some money on Plum Street. They're willing to think about some grants. They're willing to think about SS4A. They're thinking about issues like safety on Route 7 and safety getting to the schools. And they're willing to interact with other players like the school, the state, and the county. And so I do feel like we have a town board that's more receptive to some of the agenda that we're trying to do, and that we should send ideas to them and be encouraging about them taking a look at some of this stuff. So thank you all for being here today, and I'll adjourn the meeting. So take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye-bye.